Jess, in terms of these protests, they seem so far fairly peaceful. How big have they been? Have they been dampened at all by the rain this morning?
Well, this morning, the protest focused in small groups of what they call the 99 pickets, which have really been more like a little bit over 50. And there have been groups, I would say, of around 20 to 40 that have headed to specific locations. So a lot of bank branches, our own News Corp building, to the New York Times building, to the post office, the main branch of the post office. And the idea is to sort of send a symbolic message of the injustices that have been done to the 99%, is what they say.
And we're looking at some footage right now of protesters who were outside of the entrance to Grand Central Terminal on 47th Street this morning. They again were outside of the Chase Bank, which is one of the targets, I believe, that you mentioned. Jessica, how much is riding on this protest today for Occupy Wall Street to get back in the public consciousness since they were kicked out of Zuccotti Park last November? Is there a lot riding on the turnout today?
I think a lot is riding on this new alliance that has formed between Occupy Wall Street organizers, the movement, the labor movement, and immigrant groups. That is what is probably the most new and notable aspect of today's event. And this is an alliance that they hope to continue as a way to build the numbers of the movement and also just build the message a little more. So I think one of the things is that this is testing how well that partnership will work.
And we're also seeing protests across the world actually today in places like Spain and in Greece, where they are protesting austerity measures taking place there. Some of the sentiments you hear out of those protesters very similar to what we're hearing from the Occupy Wall Street protesters here in Manhattan. Now, you mentioned the labor movement and these tight ties and the alliances there. The labor union is usually very organized when they plot their protests. Was there some tension at all with the way Occupy Wall Street sort of springs up and isn't always abiding by the rules necessarily when it plots its protests, Jess?
Well, it seems to be more that they see this arrangement as mutually beneficial. So Occupy Wall Street brings that sort of creativity and spontaneity to the movement. And then, as you said, the labor movement brings more organized events and just more people, obviously, to the movement, which is important.
And we've heard of at least reports of one arrest potentially this morning of a man who was basically just standing out in the middle of traffic. Have you seen any violence to speak of in these protests today, Jess?
I have not seen any violence. It's been incredibly peaceful. The current jumping point for the protest right now is at Bryant Park, which is Midtown Manhattan, and it is just very peaceful. It's a very celebratory atmosphere. There's drummers, there's people gathering, they're serving food here, and I think we may see a little bit more police activity, interactions between protesters and police as the day progresses, because at 2 we have the first of the 2 rallies, which will be what they're calling a Million Guitar March, and it's being led by the guitarist of the band Rage Against the Machine, and they will be walking the 25 blocks from Bryant Park to Union Square. And then the second march is the Union Back March, which is actually a permitted march, also something very new for the movement, and that will head to the MTA headquarters in Lower Manhattan from Union Square.